Everyone wants to control you. Your boss wants to control your time. Your friends want to control your choices. Your family wants to control your future. Advertisers want to control your money. Politicians want to control your vote. And they all use the same weapon, your emotional investment. But there's one trait that makes you completely immune to their manipulation. One characteristic that transforms you from puppet to player. One quality that the most powerful people in history have used to become untouchable. This trait isn't intelligence. Smart people get manipulated every day. It isn't strength. Strong people get controlled all the time. It isn't even awareness. You can see the manipulation coming, and still fall for it if you don't have this one specific trait. What I'm about to reveal isn't just theory. It's the exact psychological armor that Machiavelli observed in every leader who maintained power, every strategist who won impossible battles, every person who rose from nothing to everything. The trait is strategic indifference, not apathy, not coldness, not disconnection from life. Strategic indifference, the ability to control what you care about, when you care about it, and how much you care about it. It's the conscious choice to remain emotionally uninvested in things that don't serve your objectives. It's the power to watch others panic while you remain calm. It's the skill of being selective with your emotional energy. Right now, someone is trying to make you angry about something that doesn't matter. Someone is trying to make you worried about something you can't control. Someone is trying to make you feel guilty about something that isn't your responsibility. And if you're like most people, it's working. You're giving away your emotional energy to anyone who knows how to trigger you. You're allowing others to decide what deserves your attention, your stress, your passion. 500 years ago, Niccolò Machiavelli wrote something that scandalized society. A wise prince must never keep faith when it tells against him, and when the reasons that made him promise no longer exist. Everyone misunderstands this quote. They think it's about lying. It's about strategic indifference to past commitments that no longer serve present realities. It's about not being emotionally chained to decisions, promises, or positions that have become Strategic indifference is the most powerful trait because it makes you psychologically invulnerable. When you don't care about what others use to control people, approval, status, inclusion, validation, you become impossible to manipulate. When you're indifferent to the rewards and punishments that govern most human behavior, you become ungovernable. When you can walk away from anything without emotional devastation, you become unstoppable. Think about the last time someone successfully manipulated you. They found something you cared about, and used it as leverage. Maybe they threatened to withdraw their approval. Maybe they dangled an opportunity you desperately wanted. Maybe they pushed your guilt buttons about something you felt responsible for. The manipulation worked because you were emotionally invested. Your caring became the chain they pulled. Now imagine if you had been strategically indifferent. Not uncaring, but selective in your caring. Not emotionless, but economical with your emotion. The threat of withdrawn approval wouldn't matter because you weren't invested in their approval. The dangled opportunity wouldn't control you because you had other options. The guilt wouldn't work because you had clear boundaries about what you were and weren't responsible for. This is the power that transforms ordinary people into extraordinary forces. When you master strategic indifference, manipulation attempts don't just fail. They reveal valuable information about the manipulator. Their tactics show you their assumptions about what controls you. Their strategies expose their own vulnerabilities. Their attempts to trigger you highlight what they think your weaknesses are. Let me be crystal clear about what strategic indifference is, and isn't. It's not sociopathy. Sociopaths can't feel. You're choosing what to feel. It's not depression. Depression is involuntary numbness. This is voluntary selection. It's not giving up. Giving up is defeat. This is strategy. Strategic indifference is the conscious allocation of your emotional resources toward things that actually matter, while maintaining immunity to things designed to manipulate you. Here's how strategic indifference manifests in real situations. Your colleague tries to make you jealous by talking about their promotion. Instead of feeling threatened or competitive, you feel nothing. Not because you don't have ambitions, but because their promotion is irrelevant to your path. Their attempt to trigger your insecurity fails because you're not emotionally invested in comparing yourself to them. Someone tries to guilt you into doing something you don't want to do. They talk about how disappointed they are, how you're letting them down, how they expected better from you. These emotional manipulation tactics that work on most people fail completely on you. Not because you're heartless, but because you've decided that their emotional state is not your responsibility. Their disappointment is their problem to manage, not your burden to prevent. A romantic interest tries to make you chase them by being hot and cold, available then distant, interested then aloof. These games that drive most people crazy have zero effect on you. Not because you don't care about connection, but because you're not invested in any specific person's approval. If they want to play games, you're indifferent. You'll find someone who doesn't need games. The dating world is where strategic indifference becomes most powerful. The person who cares less has more power. This is a fundamental law of human psychology. But most people can't help caring desperately. They invest emotionally in strangers. They build fantasies around people they barely know. They give their power away before the first date even happens. Strategic indifference reverses this. You enjoy dating without needing any specific outcome. You appreciate people without requiring their reciprocation. You engage without attachment to results. In professional settings, strategic indifference is career armor. Your boss threatens your job to control you. But you're strategically indifferent because you've built other options. You don't panic. You don't beg. You calmly assess whether this job still serves your objectives. The threat that would devastate most people merely provides you with information about whether it's time to move on. Your coworkers try to pull you into office drama, picking sides in political battles that don't matter. You remain strategically indifferent. Not uninformed, but uninvested. You see the dynamics, understand the players, recognize the games, but you don't emotionally participate. While they exhaust themselves in meaningless conflicts, you focus on what actually advances your objectives. Here's the paradox that makes strategic indifference so powerful. The less you care, the more you get. The less you need specific outcomes, the more likely those outcomes become. The less you chase, the more comes to you. This isn't mysticism. This is psychology. Neediness repels. Independence attracts. Desperation weakens. Indifference strengthens. When you're strategically indifferent to whether someone likes you, they often end up liking you more. Why? Because confidence is attractive, and nothing signals confidence like indifference to approval. When you're strategically indifferent to whether you get a specific opportunity, you often get it. Why? Because desperation makes people question your value, while indifference suggests you have better options. Machiavelli understood this deeply. Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are. Strategic indifference is about appearance and reality. You appear indifferent, which gives you power. But you're actually highly strategic about what deserves your emotional investment. You're not indifferent to everything. That would be nihilism. You're indifferent to things that others use to control people. The development of strategic indifference begins with audit. List everything you currently care about. Your reputation, specific relationships, your job, your possessions, your habits, your opinions. Now ask yourself, which of these could someone use to manipulate me? Which of these, if threatened, would make me compromise my values? Which of these am I so attached to that losing them would devastate me? These are your vulnerabilities. Every attachment is a potential point of manipulation. Everything you can't walk away from is something that owns you. Every outcome you desperately need is an outcome that controls you. Strategic indifference means systematically reducing these vulnerabilities. Not by caring about nothing, but by being selective about what gets your emotional investment. Start practicing with small things. Someone cuts you off in traffic. Normal response: anger, frustration, maybe road rage. Strategic indifference response: nothing. Their behavior is irrelevant to your objectives. Their rudeness doesn't deserve your emotional energy. Their existence doesn't merit your attention. You continue your day unaffected while they remain angry and stressed. Someone doesn't respond to your text message. Normal response: anxiety, overthinking, maybe sending follow-up messages. Strategic indifference response: nothing. If they want to respond, they will. If they don't, that's information about their priorities. Either way, your emotional state remains stable. Your day continues unaffected. Your value doesn't depend on their response time. These might seem like small victories, but they're practice for bigger applications. The muscle of strategic indifference gets stronger with use. Soon you can apply it to major situations. Job rejections don't devastate you. Relationship endings don't destroy you. Social exclusions don't define you. You become psychologically bulletproof. But here's the sophisticated part. Strategic indifference doesn't mean you stop caring about everything. It means you become extremely selective about what earns your emotional investment. You care deeply about your chosen objectives. You invest heavily in your selected relationships. You commit fully to your decided path. But everything outside these conscious choices gets your indifference. This selectivity makes your caring more powerful. When everyone gets your emotional energy, no one values it. When only the worthy few get your emotional investment, it becomes precious. When you care about everything, your caring means nothing. When you care about specific things, your caring transforms situations. The mistake people make is thinking strategic indifference means becoming a robot. It does. It means becoming a sniper instead of a machine gun with your emotional energy. Machine guns spray bullets everywhere, hoping to hit something. Snipers choose their targets carefully and rarely miss. Your emotional investment should work the same way. Let's talk about how strategic indifference protects you from the most common manipulation tactics. Gaslighting works by making you doubt your reality. But when you're strategically indifferent to whether others validate your experience, gaslighting fails. You know what you experience. Their agreement or disagreement is irrelevant. Their attempts to make you question yourself fail because you're not invested in their confirmation. Love bombing works by overwhelming you with attention and affection, creating addiction to that validation. But strategic indifference immunizes you. You enjoy the attention without needing it. You appreciate the affection without depending on it. When they inevitably withdraw it to create dependence, you remain unaffected. The manipulation tactic that destroys most people barely registers with you. Guilt manipulation works by making you responsible for others' emotions. But strategic indifference means you've clearly defined what you are and aren't responsible for. Someone else's disappointment, not your responsibility. Someone else's expectations, not your obligation. Someone else's emotional state, not your burden. The guilt they try to instill hits your indifference like waves against a cliff. Fear manipulation works by threatening things you care about. But when you've cultivated strategic indifference, you've already considered losing everything and made peace with it. Job threats don't scare you because you're not attached to any specific job. Relationship threats don't control you because you're not desperate for any specific relationship. Social threats don't matter because you're not invested in others' opinions. The ultimate form of strategic indifference is outcome independence. You take action toward your goals but remain indifferent to whether you achieve them. This sounds contradictory, but it's not. You work hard but don't need the specific result. You pursue excellence, but don't require the reward. You engage fully but don't attach to outcome. This outcome independence makes you paradoxically more likely to succeed. When you're not desperate for success, you make better decisions. When you're not terrified of failure, you take necessary risks. When you're not attached to specific results, you adapt quickly to changing circumstances. The indifference that seems like it would make you less effective actually makes you more effective. Machiavelli captured this perfectly. Whosoever desires constant success must change his conduct with the times. This requires strategic indifference to your previous methods, positions, and investments. Most people can't change because they're emotionally attached to how they've always done things. Strategic indifference gives you the flexibility to evolve constantly. In negotiations, strategic indifference is the ultimate weapon. The person who cares less about the deal has all the power. If you need the sale, the buyer controls you. If you need the relationship, the other person controls you. But when you're strategically indifferent, when you want the outcome but don't need it, you negotiate from strength. This applies to every interaction. Every conversation is a negotiation. Every relationship is a power dynamic. Every situation involves someone trying to influence someone else. When you master strategic indifference, you always negotiate from the position of power because you always care less about specific outcomes than others do. But here's what makes strategic indifference truly powerful. It's not just defensive, it's offensive. When you're immune to manipulation, you see others' attempts clearly. You understand their tactics, their needs, their desperation. This information is incredibly valuable. You know exactly what they want, what they fear, what controls them. You can use this knowledge strategically, or simply avoid their games entirely. The cultivation of strategic indifference requires constant vigilance. Your emotions will try to override your strategy. Your programming will push you toward caring about things that don't matter. Society will pressure you to be invested in their concerns. You must consciously choose indifference repeatedly until it becomes automatic. Start by identifying your triggers. What makes you irrationally angry? What creates desperate need? What generates overwhelming fear? These are the areas where you're most vulnerable to manipulation. These are the emotions others can use to control you. Strategic indifference means consciously reducing these trigger responses. When something triggers you, pause. Ask yourself, does this actually matter to my objective? Will this matter in a year? Is my emotional response proportional to the actual threat? Usually the answer is no. The trigger is designed to bypass your logical thinking and generate immediate emotional response. Strategic indifference breaks this pattern. The advanced practice involves pre-deciding your responses. Before entering any situation, decide what deserves your emotional investment. Going to a family gathering? Decide beforehand that you're indifferent to political arguments, career comparisons, and personal criticism. You'll engage pleasantly but remain emotionally uninvested in others' opinions or provocations. This pre-decision prevents emotional hijacking. When Uncle Bob starts his political rant, you've already decided to be indifferent. When your cousin brags about their success, you've already chosen not to care. When your parent criticizes your life choices, you've already determined their opinion is irrelevant. You remain pleasant but psychologically untouchable. In romantic relationships, strategic indifference prevents the most common destructions. Jealousy can't exist when you're strategically indifferent to whether someone chooses you. If they want others, that's information about incompatibility, not a reflection of your worth. Possessiveness can't develop when you're indifferent to controlling someone. If they want to leave, keeping them would be pointless anyway. This doesn't mean you don't love. It means you love without need. You appreciate without attachment. You enjoy without desperation. Your love becomes a gift rather than a chain. Your presence becomes a choice rather than an obligation. Your relationship becomes a voluntary association of two complete people rather than two incomplete people desperately clinging to each other. The professional applications are transformative. When you're strategically indifferent to office politics, you can focus on actual productivity. When you're indifferent to credit and recognition, you can concentrate on results. When you're indifferent to hierarchical games, you can build genuine value. While others exhaust themselves in psychological warfare, you're getting things done. This makes you incredibly valuable. In a world of emotionally reactive people playing political games, the strategically indifferent person who just produces results stands out dramatically. You become the one everyone wants on their team, because you're focused on objectives, not drama. You become the one who gets promoted because you're effective, not just visible. Strategic indifference also transforms your relationship with failure. Most people are terrified of failure because they're emotionally invested in success. Every setback devastates them. Every rejection crushes them. Every mistake haunts them. But when you're strategically indifferent to specific outcomes, failure becomes just information. This didn't work. Useful to know. Let's try something else. This indifference to failure makes you unstoppable. While others are paralyzed by fear of making mistakes, you're experimenting constantly. While they're devastated by rejection, you're already moving to the next opportunity. While they're stuck analyzing what went wrong, you're implementing what you learned. Your indifference to failure makes you failure-proof. The social dynamics shift completely when you master strategic indifference. People sense that you can't be controlled through normal channels. You don't respond to the social pressures that govern most behavior. You don't play the status games that occupy most people. You exist outside the normal framework of social manipulation. This makes you both fascinating and frustrating to others. Fascinating because you represent something different, something free. Frustrating because you won't play the games they're used to playing. Some people will be drawn to your independence, others will resent your immunity to their influence. You'll be strategically indifferent to both responses. The mastery of strategic indifference is a gradual process. You won't become completely manipulation-proof overnight. Start with small applications. Be indifferent to strangers' opinions. Graduate to being indifferent to acquaintances' judgment. Eventually become indifferent to everyone's assessment, except your own, and the very few whose judgment you consciously value. Remember, strategic indifference is not about not caring. It's about choosing what to care about. It's not about being emotional. It's about being selective with your emotions. It's not about disconnection. It's about conscious connection. You're not becoming less human. You're becoming more intentional about your humanity. The transformation happens gradually, then suddenly. One day you realize that the things that used to control you have no power anymore. The approval you used to chase seems meaningless. The threats that used to terrify you seem empty. The manipulation tactics that used to work on you seem transparent and almost amusing. You've become psychologically free. This freedom changes everything. When you're impossible to manipulate, you can finally pursue your actual objectives without distraction. When you're immune to others' games, you can focus on your own game. When you're indifferent to what doesn't matter, you can invest fully in what does matter. Strategic indifference isn't about caring less, it's about caring smarter. Drop this in the comments. I choose what deserves my emotion, because from this moment forward, you're no longer giving your emotional energy to anyone who knows your triggers. You're no longer allowing others to decide what deserves your attention. You're no longer permitting manipulation through your attachment. You're strategically indifferent, and that makes you unstoppable.